EU policy analyst and joins us from Brussels. Pieter, welcome to the programme. In July, you'll remember the European Parliament, overwhelmingly passed a non-binding resolution, said it definitely supports a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics. So what do you make of the disconnect between the French government, Emmanuel Macron, saying let's not politicise the Games, and the European Parliament?
There's not only a disconnect between France and the EP, also between France and, let's say, 4 of the five eyes. So Australia, USA, Canada, UK are going along with this diplomatic boycott, which is not a sports boycott, a diplomatic boycott. France is not convinced that's the right avenue to follow. That said, France is not sending its top minister, it's sending some junior minister, so it's sending some kind of a signal. I would say France will be France. You know, it has always been following its own foreign policy. It does not necessarily want to commit to the full transatlantic line. And as much, I think, as France is on board with the condemnation of the Uyghur issue, it does not necessarily want to follow the same strategy as the United States. So I think that's at the heart of all of this.
Yeah, OK, so what is the French policy towards Beijing and its alleged treatment? I mean, it's pretty much been proven, OK, but let's call it alleged treatment of Uyghur Muslims. What is the French engagement with Beijing on that issue and the EU engagement? Are they different?
Well, like you say, absolutely. I think it's consensus in France and in continental Europe that this is a very big problem. You have up to 2 million people being locked up. And surely this cannot be all about fighting terrorism, as the Beijing regime claims. Then the number 2 question is how do you deal with that? Do you stop all trade? Do you send like some kind of a signal? I mean, I would say the opinions can differ on that. I would not necessarily condemn France for accommodating China or something just simply because they don't follow the path of the United States. You could argue that it's not wise to follow the path of the US, that it's not wise to break ranks as the West. Frankly, I think it's hard to find the answers on that. In the past, sports boycotts have not been very successful. Economic sanctions have not been very successful. That said, it's probably important to send a signal of some kind. I personally lean towards sending a unified signal. I personally don't think France is following the correct strategy by trying to go in on its own here. Perhaps we should also not underestimate how France has been disappointed by Australia breaking off this military contract with submarines in favor of the AUKUS cooperation with the United States. Perhaps this is still one of the issues that is still lingering. France saying, look, you did not do us a favor there. We're not going to do you a favor here necessarily. Then I think at the end of the day, let's hope that also France will send some kind of a signal to Beijing that, look, I mean, this is not okay.
Pieter, you mentioned trade. And some EU countries have said, look, let's be a little bit careful. We have to be realistic because we have to continue to trade with the world's second biggest economy. Have we reached the point where even rich countries, I mean, let's forget about the developing world, but the rich countries are at the point where China's economic might is possibly stopping them from speaking out against Beijing?
Personally, I don't think that China's economic importance has influenced the French decision. I think the fact that they don't join is more inspired by being annoyed about the whole AUKUS episodes. That said, you know, if you look at the current developments at the EU level, the EU will come up with an arrangement which will force companies to disclose whether they're in their supply chains they They are sourcing from companies involved in the human rights abuses in the Xinjiang region. I mean, that's a very complex topic in Europe. I think everybody agrees that there should be some kind of a mechanism to make sure companies are not in any way engaged in this slave labor initiatives or practices that you see in Western China. It's much more complicated to make sure that you actually have a functioning mechanism where you can make sure that companies can actually, are able to prove that they have been, that they are, that some of their supply chains are involved in that. That's not so easy. Yeah.
Pieter, really appreciate it. Thank you so much indeed for talking to us on the News Hour. Pieter Cleppe in Brussels.